giant orange records.
What the hell is the point of collecting obscure vinyl? Short answer, seeking out new or new to us albums is an addiction for us music junkies. Once you've heard the good stuff, there's no going back. Maybe I just love to cheer for the underdog and celebrate the musical victories of the complete unknowns. Maybe I feel like a bit of an underdog myself, and these albums prove it's possible to make great music even if it never reaches a massive audience. But with streaming making almost all recorded music available, what is the point of seeking out obscure vinyl? For one, it will probably sound better on your turntable. The trade-off is it might make it hard to pay rent on some months, but then you can feel cool and special because you know about something that only a few people know about. I mean, look, I love the classics, but they tend to get overplayed ad nauseum, and too much of a good thing can become boring. Like the old saying goes, show me the hottest girl in the world, and I'll show you the guy who's tired of screwing her. Perhaps it's just human nature to take what we already have for granted and place too much value on what we don't have but think we should have. In this world, there are only two tragedies. One is not getting what one wants, and the other is getting it. Oscar Wilde. Now, there is a novelty in seeking out music you haven't heard before, but at this point in my life, I've been collecting vinyl for close to 25 years, and I think I can arrogantly and justifiably say that I've probably heard everything that's really good that I need to hear. Then it's just a matter of whittling down the hordes of music that I've already fallen in love with. But music is a gift that keeps on giving. It is full of surprises. There was so much music recorded from the 1960s onward that it's truly hard to have heard everything. And not all albums are created equal. Some are awesome, some suck, and most are somewhere in between. I've developed a 3-part scale for grading albums that I like. Awesome, totally awesome, and totally freaking awesome. Some music is more demanding on the listener, like say the Velvet Underground, and some just fades into the background nicely. Most jazz can be nice background music, but it also rewards attentive listening. I'd really like to believe there is a piece of music for all occasions. Through misjudgments and generally poor decisions, I've wound up with a lot of records that I rarely listen to. Maybe I'll listen to them once excitedly and then forget about them for months or years at a time. The sheer amount of music we have available to us in this internet age is astonishing. It's literally endless. And I'm not just talking about streaming. With websites like Discogs and eBay and every indie rock band's Bandcamp, we have more vinyl available online than just about any working chap could afford to buy. And sure, you can plug your phone or laptop into your vintage hi-fi and stream away, but nobody wants their listening experience interrupted by phone calls, email notifications, or text messages. This is why vinyl is king. Also, analog sounds way better than digital, and that's a hill I'm willing to die on. It would probably take me years to listen to all the music I have in my vinyl collection if the albums were played non-stop 24/7. Because vinyl is so expensive these days and time and space is limited, I get to be picky. Really picky, if I want to. And guess what? There's nothing you can do about it. I say stick with what you really like and what genuinely speaks to your soul. But that doesn't solve the problem of my tastes evolving over time. I've added a few albums to my collection over the years that I thought were worthless trash when I first heard them, and a while later I'd put them on again and suddenly it clicked. And once it clicks, it stays with you forever. Maybe I just need to be in the right mood or the right headspace. And when you're ready to receive certain gifts of music, they will speak to your mind, body, and spirit like a pink elephant that suddenly decides to hug you and won't let go. This was true for the Velvet Underground and Nico, Love's Forever Changes, the Minutemen's Double Nickels and the Dime, the 13th Floor Elevator's Easter Everywhere and Bull of the Woods, and the Stooges' Funhouse, just to name a few. If you know me, you'll know I'm not a deadhead. In 2023, I found a used copy of the Grateful Dead's American Beauty, commonly agreed upon as one of their best studio albums. With my new age tie-dyed, open-minded approach, I tried to listen to it on a Friday night. I excitedly put it on the turntable, but I lifted the needle before the end of side one, feeling a slight tinge of shame, guilt, and disappointment. The mood just wasn't right. I needed something more Friday night, but that Sunday morning as I was sipping my coffee and ready for some more Jerry Garcia-induced boredom, I dropped the needle on American Beauty, and as the title might suggest, it aligned perfectly with my mood and the atmosphere of that time of day. I was grinning from ear to ear and enjoying the album more than I ever had. It finally clicked with me. I'd really been able to hear it and receive it for the first time. I felt the vibe, man, Tato. So what am I getting at? Music appreciation, like all good habits, takes time before you can reap its full reward. We all know time is tricky and elusive, like a stretch of the Rocky Mountains, as Kurt Vonnegut said. And here's the honest-to-goodness truth. The only reason I'm thinking about all this is to help me decide if I need to spend $23 on that 1969 album by The Rationals, a Detroit band that gave the world only one album. It was a self-titled effort of hard-edged soul, but by the time they recorded their music, they'd watered it down and turned into more of a psychedelic thing to keep up with the times, but apparently it felt a little bit forced and, perhaps you can hear this strain in the music. The Rationals may not live up to their full potential here, but we will never know. I mean, it's no Abbey Road or Dark Side of the Moon, but I bet you already knew that. But you see, I exhausted those albums before I graduated high school, so I'll probably pass on the Rationals. Next problem. What else could I spend my hard-earned money on? Will this wind up in a pile of records that I never get around to listening to? Or what about that Frigid Pink Band, another Detroit group from the late 60s that I never got around to listening to? I'd heard of them because of their unique name and eye-dazzling album art, but even with streaming services readily available in my pocket and at my fingertips, I still haven't gotten around to listening to them. I suppose us collectors are just a bunch of seekers on a quest that can never be satisfied. I've scored tons of personal Holy Grail albums over the years, yet I tend to underappreciate them. Perhaps owning so many records can cause some subtle anxiety and the guilt of wondering, when am I going to listen to all these waxy friends? Who am I neglecting today? How late am I going to stay up tonight listening to music? Albums take up lots of space in your living room and perhaps your storage unit or shed if you really go all in. Am I becoming a man's version of an old cat lady? Or is a hobby related to music a little bit cooler? Should I take up the even more expensive and shrewd hobby of collecting vintage guitars and amps? These are questions that I ask the universe almost every day, yet I'm still waiting on the answer. I'm not super competitive in general, and dear God, I hope I'm not a one-upper, but collecting these albums gives me something to think about. I believe I truly do this for the love of the music, which sounds heavenly on a decent turntable with an old receiver blasting into garage sale hi-fi speakers. So I will take this time to show some gratitude and appreciate a handful of obscure records that have made the hunt and the chase worth the effort. Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band, Safe as Milk, 1967. Here is Barbara Lynn, 1968. The Golden Dawn Power Plant, 1968. The Remains, 1966. Bunky and Jake, LAMF. I think this one is from 1969. Kenny Burrell, Midnight Blue, 1963. Brendan Benson, Lapalco, 2002. Jimmy Rivers and the Cherokees, Brisbane Bop, released in 1983, but recorded in the early 1960s. Back from the Grave, Volume 1, also released in 1983 and recorded mostly in 1966. The Archaics self-titled album, 2014. Here are The Sonics by The Sonics, 1965. Action by Question Mark and the Mysterians, 1967. Os Mutantes by Os Mutantes, 1968. Love by Love, 1966. Loretta Lynn, I Like 'Em Country, 1966. Gabor Szabo, Dreams, 1968. The Count 5, Psychotic Reaction, 1966. Satan's Pilgrims, Psych-sploitation, 2009. The Clientele, Suburban Light, 2000. Beechwood Sparks, Desert Skies, 2013 release, recorded in the late 1990s. The Olivia Tremor Control, Dusk at Cubist Castle, 1996. The Frowning Clouds, Whereabouts, 2013. John Vanderslice, Time Travel is Lonely, 2001. The West Coast Pop Art Experimental Band, Part 1, 1967. Tyrone Davis, Turn Back the Hands of Time, 1970. The incredible Jimmy Smith, Back at the Chicken Shack, 1963. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more obscure records coming your way.
Giant, orange, giant, orange, giant, orange, giant, orange, giant, orange.